Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Steve Seepersod. I'm part of the communications and marketing team here at Binghamton University. On behalf of the Alumni Association, I extend a hearty welcome to today's program, Getting Started with Retirement Program, Retirement Planning. This webinar is part of the Binghamton Learning Network webinar series, Getting Started with Retirement Planning. So glad that you're here today. Because retirement planning is such a heavy topic, and the topic is something that we present the information in a way that's very age specific. So what you need is different than somebody else, a different part of their lifespan, and so on and so forth. We've taken this and we've broken it down into three parts. And so today is the webinar that's intended for recent graduates. So we're doing recent graduates, mid-career and late career. So if you're a recent grad of Binghamton, congratulations. We're so glad you're here. And this program is designed specifically for you. We're happy to take your questions during this hour. If you're watching us on the microsite, be sure to ask your questions by typing them into the box on the screen. If you're watching us on the Alumni Association Facebook page, add your question as a comment. We'll be looking at these questions during the show. We'll bring them in where we can and ask them of our presenter, and certainly we'll allow some time at the end to ask questions, taking us right to the top of the hour, 1 o'clock Eastern, and should be a great and a fast-moving program. Before we dive into the topic, I want to introduce a special guest joining us on video. He would have liked to be here live, just didn't quite pan out for today. Presenting a message on behalf of the Binghamton University Foundation, which does such generous support of many programs and students here on campus. Introduce Owen Pell from the class of 1980. He's the chair of the Binghamton University Foundation, and he has a few very special remarks he'd like to share.
And investments, and work closely with President Stenger. Good afternoon. I'm Owen Pell, the chair of the Binghamton University Foundation. The foundation is Binghamton's fundraising arm. We help the university's development office raise money, watch over the university's endowment and investments, and work closely with President Stenger to support the mission of the university. Even though we are a modest endowment of about $165 million, every year we give millions of dollars to the university, including for things where state money has been cut or is not available. Every year, for example, we give the university several $million for additional scholarships so that Binghamton can compete with other elite private and public universities for the best students. The foundation also has given millions of dollars to support the university acquiring land in Johnson City for the new nursing school complex and the new School of Pharmacy. In addition to alumni, almost 1/3 of our foundation board is from the Binghamton community, people who love the university and what it brings to the Southern Tier. The foundation provides all of us with a way of engaging with the university and making a difference. For me, that has been about two big projects. About 15 years ago, I endowed an honors thesis program and a thesis prize for undergraduates in philosophy, politics, and law. More recently, with an anonymous donor I located, we established an institute for genocide and mass atrocity prevention, which makes Binghamton one of the few universities in the United States to offer a master's degree and a minor in this emerging and important interdisciplinary academic area. Like many Binghamton graduates, many current Binghamton students, and many members of the foundation board, I was the first person in my family to graduate college. I have always viewed Binghamton as the place that launched me in life and as a gift that keeps on giving. We are particularly excited this week to bring you webinars on retirement planning. 3 webinars geared to alumni that are at the beginning, middle, or end of their career cycles. We hope these webinars are useful and that you not only enjoy them, but use them as a way to reconnect with Binghamton University. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you will continue finding ways to support Binghamton University. Go Bearcats!
Absolutely, go Bearcats. Thank you, Owen, for those remarks. I'd now like to bring in a member of the class of 1998, and he serves on the Alumni Association board and is chair of our Lifelong Learning Committee, Dana West. Dana, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I will just repeat what Steve said, which is half of my comments here. Again, I'm on the board of directors of the Alumni Association, If you're not familiar with what we do, it's connecting our alumni from all ages to programming, to connecting back to the university in a number of different ways. So I encourage you to check out the alumni website. As well, I am the chair of the Lifelong Learning Committee. What does the Lifelong Learning Committee do as part of the board? Things just like this. So we're so thrilled to be able to offer these webinars. COVID, for better or for worse, has encouraged us to increase our remote learning and activities. So we are getting back to in-person in a number of different areas in and around the country, but it's our pleasure to be able to offer things such like this. So I do hope you enjoy this, and I hope we are able to do these on an ongoing basis. If you're not familiar, we have a book club. If you're not familiar, we have a travel program that will hopefully be back in the works over the next year. And if you're not familiar, we do have a socially responsible movie club. So these are a few of the things of our offerings. And Steve, I appreciate all you've done to get these set up, and I'm going to hand it back to you. Thanks so much for joining.
Dana, thank you very much, and for all you do on behalf of the Alumni Association. And one of the best things about the Alumni Association, we throw out the question of what programs should we offer? What would you like to do? And you get to help us decide. And so by being engaged with us, you can be a part of shaping the programs like webinars, like other things that we have in person or virtual events or both. So definitely check us out, binghamton.edu/alumni. And we like very much for alumni to be involved with us and for this to be a true collaborative effort. Okay, so we'll bring it now to the featured speaker for this presentation. So I think he had a bit of a camera problem, so we will wait for that to come back up. But I'll get his title slide ready here. Here we go. So bring in Rigetti Joseph. You are live on the air with us, and Rigetti joins us from New York City. He is a two-time graduate of Binghamton University, got his bachelor's degree with us in 2003, Master of Public Administration 2005, works as a certified financial planner, is extremely passionate about sharing his knowledge to help people build the right financial habits and get off to a good footing, because what you do now can pay dividends for a long time. It could be in a good way, it could be in a not so good way. And the beauty of it is that you get to decide how that will go. And Rigetti will share today how you can get that done in a positive way. So turn it over to you now. Thank you so much for joining us. So glad to have you here.
Of course. Thank you, Steve. And thank you for having me. And what a great introduction, because it basically describes what this presentation is about. Okay. The title of this presentation is Getting Started with Retirement Planning. All right. I'm going to share some ideas and information with you that I wish I knew when I first graduated college. My finances were a mess. So the intention with this presentation is to share some ideas and information with you that, if applied, will not only help you have more peace of mind financially right now, but will also help your retirement take care of itself. It's a set it and forget it kind of a thing if you start early. Next slide, please. As you can see, we have an action-packed agenda for you today. But since we have limited time, let's get right into it. Next slide, please. When it comes to retirement, people talk about it as if it's a one-time thing. You retire and that's it. You live happily ever after. It reminds me of those Disney movies that I used to watch when I was younger. Okay, I still watch them from time to time now. But in those movies, the storyline is usually the same. The two main characters meet up at the end of the story and they get married and live happily ever after. For those of you who have been married or know people who are married, you know that's not how the story goes. Marriage is the beginning of a whole new journey, a whole new chapter in your life. Same thing with your retirement. It's not a one-time thing. Retirement can last you 20, 30 years or longer. What does that look like for you? Ask yourself some important questions. How do you envision your retirement? How does it look like? For example, where do you want to live? Every winter, I tell myself, I'm going to leave New York because I'm from Haiti. I can never get used to this cold weather. So when I retire, I'm definitely not going to stay in New York. How about you? What state do you want to live? Do you want to move to a different country? there are 5 categories I want you to consider. What do you plan to do physically to keep yourself physically active when you retire? Then you have the emotional. Are you going to be around family and friends that you know, or do you plan to make new friends? Do you plan to volunteer your time in retirement? How about the mental? The mental is just like the physical, is use it or lose it. What are you going to do to keep yourself mentally sharp when you retire? How about financial? How much money do you need to live and have the life you want in retirement? Don't just say I want a lot of money. Be very specific. How much do you need? How about the spiritual? Who are you outside of what you do? This is not a question that you should take lightly, because studies have shown that people sometimes die early in retirement because of lack of purpose. They attach what they do with who they are. When you ask me what I do, I tell you I work as a financial planner. But when you ask most people what they do, they say, I am a financial planner. I am a professor. I am a firefighter. I am a teacher. They identify what they do with who they are. So when they retire, they lose a sense of purpose, a big part of them. So right now is a time to start thinking about who you really are besides what you provide to the world. Now, your vision for your retirement will change, especially if you're young. But it's still a good idea to just envision what you want your retirement to be now, and then from time to time add new things, take things away, but always have a goal, an end goal in mind, a vision. Next slide, please. Now that we discussed where you want to go, let's take some time to analyze where you are now. And this is what this quiz is designed to do. It's not a pass or fail quiz. It's just to see where you stand financially right now. First question is, do you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in an emergency fund? By expenses, we mean, do you have money to cover your necessities, such as your rent or mortgage, food, utilities, cell phone? Do you have enough money to cover your expenses for 3 months if you have 2 sources of income in your household, or 6 months if you have 1 source of income in your household? Next question, do you worry about how much you owe? When I first graduated college, I was buried in debt. So if you are a recent graduate, hopefully that's not the case for you. Followed by, do you only make minimum payments on your credit cards? Do you carry balances on more than 3 credit cards? Finally, do you check your credit reports on an annual basis? By answering these questions, you will either feel that you are financially fit or not. Next slide, please. Just like in school, when we had report cards that showed how well we were doing, we also have report cards as in adults. It's our financial report. And it has 2 items on there. First is your net worth statement, which is all your assets minus all of your liabilities. And then you have your cash flow statement, which is all of your income minus all of your expenses. Now, if you have more income than expenses, then you have discretionary income. On the other hand, if you have more expenses than income, then you have a deficit. That means that you are spending more money than you actually are bringing in, which means you may be leveraging debt to make ends meet. Next slide, please. If you do not like your financial report card, focus on these 4 steps to help improve your financial net worth. First is to increase your income as much as possible. Second is to save as much as possible. The third step is to invest a portion of your savings. And the last step is to always manage your cash flow. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time on the last 3 steps. But the first one, there's not much I can add to it. Okay? Except for 2 pieces of advice in terms of increasing your income as much as possible. That's really be up to you, but incorporate if you choose to these two pieces of advice. First is get as many qualifications as possible in your field. Having a degree, a college degree, is great. It's almost like a high school degree now. Every requires a bachelor's. Not every, but most places. But that's about it. When I graduated with a master's degree, and it took me 8 months to get a job, and my income was stagnant. But as soon as I started to get more qualifications in my field in finance, such as a Series 7, CFP, CHFC, my financial prospect, my income potential just expanded drastically. So that's one piece of advice that I can give you. Get as many qualifications as you can. And if you work for government or the state, local, city, take city exams, take government exams. The second piece of advice in terms of increasing your income as much as possible is to focus on having multiple sources of income. Aim for 6. That's the rule of thumb. The old model of having one source of income to depend on is outdated. In fact, throughout history, we see that doesn't work. Studies show that finances and money are the number one cause of stress in people's lives. It's because the model we've been living by is not working. In terms of what you can use for different sources of income, you have investments. You can invest in stocks. You have real estate. If you have a talent, if you could sing on the side, if you could act, whatever it is, know yourself and see how you can have multiple sources of income instead of depending on one source of income where you feel stuck. And if you don't like your job and you're taking shit from your boss and you want to leave, but you can't because that's your only source of income, it's stressful. So that's the two pieces of advice I can give you on increasing your income as much as possible. Now let's move on to the other steps in building your net worth, starting with saving. Next slide, please. Next, thank you. We all want to save more money, right? Saving is the first step to building your wealth. It's not about how much money you earn, it's about how much money you get to keep, right? But studies have shown that Americans have a big savings problem. We're just not saving enough money. In fact, research show that 40% of people don't have $400 to cover an emergency. Almost half of us in the U.S. don't have $400 to cover an emergency. Let alone save money for your retirement. Let's go over some saving traps that we should be mindful about so we can overcome them and save more money for the short term and the long term, such as retirement savings. The first saving trap is too far off in the future. We have this instant gratification aspect of us that prevents us from saving money for the future because we rather use the money now. For example, if I tell you that I'm going to give you $1,000 now or $5,000 in the future, most of us will pick the $1,000 now. If I say I'll give you $1,000 now or $5,000 in 5 years, most of us would pick the $5,000 now. Right? We have this bias. We need to be aware of this bias that is stopping us from saving as much money as we would like. The second is life happens. Oftentimes, people don't save enough money, not because they lack discipline, it's because life happens, right? For example, you take your car to the mechanic for your annual inspection so you can be on your way home, but the mechanic comes back and says, there are 5 things wrong with your car, and if you don't fix them, you won't pass your inspection. Now, that's money you were going to put away in a retirement fund. Now you have to use it on your car. So life happens. Next is borrowing. The whole idea of tracking your spending, creating a budget, it's not fun conversation. I mean, if I'm having dinner with someone and they start to talk about budgeting, I may get up and leave. And I work in finance. 4, it's confusing. Financial advisors love to use fancy terms such as the PE ratio of this stock is 20, and this other stock is 15, and this one stock split in 5-to-1. It's like, what in the world are these people talking about? And then they present you with options you don't even understand and ask you to make a choice. So you may become overwhelmed and not even deal with the whole finance and investing stuff. Now, the saving traps that I just mentioned are conscious ones, but there are also unconscious saving traps that are actually more powerful, that are preventing us from having the financial life that we want. Now, these saving traps have been developed in childhood, or I should say, conditioned since childhood. In fact, there's two fields of study, behavioral economics and a subfield called behavioral finance, that study unconscious human behavior. And those fields say that people are generally not as financially rational as they think. They are more emotionally driven when it comes to financial decisions. Now, let's review some unconscious saving traps we should be mindful of or bring to light. The first is avoidance. That's when a part of you avoid money for whatever reason. Maybe you feel like you feel bad for having money because others don't have. That's something I struggle with sometimes, because I have family in Haiti, relatives that are struggling financially. Sometimes I feel guilty for having money. Another way this can impact you is maybe you feel like greedy people have money, only selfish people have money. Again, that impacted me because I grew up in a household that echoed to me that money was the root of all evil. Therefore, when I grew up and I became an adult, I started working, a part of me wanted to earn more money so I can have a better financial life. But yet a part of me felt guilty for even wanting more money, because again, it was programmed in my mind that money was the root of all evil. Now, I had this internal conflict until I came across the correct quote, which states that the love of money is the root of all evil. Again, the correct quote states that the love of money is the root of all evil. Big difference. When I saw that, I rationalized to myself that, you know what? As long as I don't steal or greed for it or cheat for it, it's okay to build my wealth for myself and my family to live comfortably. But that's the power that unconscious beliefs that we've had since childhood have on us now in all areas of our lives. But since we are talking about finance, you could see how information that was programmed in our mind in childhood is still driving our adult financial decision making. Another unconscious bias is worship. That's when you worship money, where you think that money is the one thing in life that will make you happy. You would think that would help you financially because you want money so badly, but it actually stands in your way, because sometimes when we desire something too badly, that desire overpowers our logic and our personal ethics, and we get involved in things we usually would not get involved in. For example, you may get involved in those get rich quick schemes, right? Because your desire blinded you to the obvious pitfalls that were there. When you look back, it's almost like, wow, it's obvious this was a trick. But you fell for it because your desire for money pulled you into falling for the trap. Or you may get caught up in these very risky investments that promise to make you a lot of money very quickly. But what usually happens is you end up losing a lot of money very quickly. The next unconscious saving trap is status. That's when you get a sense of your self-worth based on your net worth or based on having the things that money buy. Another scientific name for it is retail therapy. Retail therapy describes the habit of purchasing goods and services with a primary purpose of boosting your mood, of making yourself feel better. The problem with this is that the boost you get, the high, is short-lived. So you have to keep buying new things to make yourself feel better, to get this boost. And after a while, simple things don't cut it. You have to buy more expensive things. The street name for this unconscious habit is keeping up with the Joneses or going broke trying to look rich. We see it all the time, right? Where people go into debt just to look richer than they are. If you see this unconscious saving traps in yourself, please keep in mind that there is a big difference between the symbols of financial wealth and actual financial wealth. Chasing the symbols of financial wealth is a very expensive habit that stands in the way of you acquiring actual financial wealth. And you know the difference because actual financial wealth usually grows in value over time, whereas the symbols usually lose value over time. For example, track the value of a blue chip stock from the year 2000 versus an expensive car from the year 2000. Now, you tell me which one is worth what right now, and you tell me which one would have been the better purchase. If you are serious about building your financial wealth, then you're going to focus on buying asset classes that grow over time. Okay, not fancy asset classes. So the last unconscious saving trap we was talk about today is money vigilance. That's when you worry too much about money and you worry too much about spending your money. What's the point of having money when you have to worry about it? That's another one that I struggled with for a while because I grew up in a household that was lacking money, right? Therefore, when I started to work, started to build my savings, I always had this uneasy feeling about spending my money because of the fear of going back to a position where I was broke again. That fear caused unhealthy anxiety around money. It's unhealthy. It also prevented me from making solid investments that would have had my money grow over time. I would have had more money now if I invested a portion of my money in the past. But because of the fear of holding on to my money too tightly, I missed on some great opportunities. Right? Sometimes we end up losing $1 trying to save a penny. Now, I've used personal experience and everyday examples to explain these unconscious saving traps. But because they are so important, I highly recommend that you look into behavioral finance and behavioral economics because those fields of study have a lot of important findings on unconscious human financial behavior that we can use to help better understand ourselves, because that's important. Because right now you can see how I look like physically. But for me to see myself, I would need to take an extra step and look in the mirror. It's the same thing psychologically. It's easy for us to see other people's bad money habits, but much more difficult to see those habits in ourselves. Therefore, we can use the science behind behavioral finance and behavioral economics as a mirror to see our unconscious saving habits. This is important because when we know ourselves and when we know our financial behavior, we can make changes and therefore make smarter spending and saving decisions that will change our financial lives. It starts with the way how we think and feel about money. Next slide, please.
Just going to jump in with a question and I'll bring us to the next slide. But looking at how much money to save, one thing we hear a lot is something about the 10% rule. So I'm just kind of curious to get your take on it. I mean, is this 10% of our salary plus a company match going into something like a 401k or 403b? Or is this 10% in the emergency fund? Or is it all these things? Or is that just not enough?
That's just a rule of thumb. It's 10% of all your earnings. But when we get to deeper into the saving portion of this discussion, you see that the idea is to try to save as much as possible. 10% should be a minimum, to be honest. But yeah, that's a good rule to start with. 10% of your overall earning. Try to save that. Okay. Now, since we went over some saving traps to be aware of, let's talk about some ways to improve our saving habits. Okay. First step is to set specific obtainable goals. Goals give us a direction in life. When we get into our cars, the first thing we do is put our destination in the GPS, right? Goals serve the same purpose for our lives. If we don't have goals, we just going aimlessly throughout life, right? In every successful book you're gonna read, every single one of them is gonna mention goals, right? But there is a science and an art to setting effective goals. Use the acronym SMARTS to help you in this process. That's SMARTS. The first S stands for specific. Don't just say you want to be rich, for example. How much money do you need specifically for you and your family to live comfortably? Be very specific about your goals. When I was in financial debt, I was buried in credit card debt after I graduated college. I set a goal to get out of debt. I was very specific about what I wanted. I used to envision myself receiving credit card statements showing zero balance on them. I was very specific about what my financial goal was, the biggest financial goal of my life. The M stands for measurable. Set goals that you can measure because it gives you more motivation to stick to the process. For example, as I mentioned, I was buried in credit card debt. I set a goal to get out of credit card debt in 3 years. I broke that goal down to annual numbers, then quarterly, then monthly. And each time I saw myself achieving the smaller goals, the monthly, the quarterly, it gave me more motivation to stick to the process. Because if you don't measure your goal, you never know how much progress you are making. And you may just give up if your goal is big. The A stands for achievable. Only set goals that you believe that you can achieve. If you don't believe that you can achieve the goal, then it's a daydream. It doesn't have much power behind it. Okay? You have to believe that you can achieve it so much that you feel like you have it already. The R stands for relevant. Only set goals that mean something deep to you. More on that one later on. The T stands for time bound. Set a time frame to achieving your goal. If not, you will procrastinate and not even get started. If you want to retire early, what age? If you want to buy a home, what's your time frame? 3 years, 2 years? Set a time frame for your goal. And the S, the last S stands for surrender. Once you set your goal, your specific goal, let it go and surrender it. This last step is very important because if you don't, you will overthink it and get in your own way. Next, personalize your goal. Don't just set goals that looks good, that's for the glamour. Set goals that mean something deeply to you, because as soon as you set goals, you will face obstacles that will test you. Both external ones and internal ones, like self-doubt. If you don't have a strong why to keep going, why would you keep going, right? For example, after I finished paying down my credit card debt, my next financial goal was to buy my first home. That meant something very deep to me because in high school, I was homeless. I got kicked out of my house and I was sleeping in different people's living rooms. It was embarrassing. It was uncomfortable. I never forgot that experience. Therefore, I wanted to buy my first home so much because it meant that no one can kick me out, not even a landlord. It meant so much to me that there was no way I wasn't going to be disciplined and stick to my budgeting and my saving goals for my down payment. There was no way I wasn't going to fix my credit, right? Because it meant so much to me. One goal helped me improve my financial life drastically. Because again, it was very personal to me. Next, involve others. Sometimes it's difficult for us to stay accountable to ourselves. But when we involve people that we love and care about, like friends and family, it may give us extra motivation to stick to the process. I see it work very well with going to the gym. It may also work with your finances. Next, save for the future and enjoy the present. My personal philosophy in life is to make peace with and learn from the past, envision and be excited about the future, and live my life in the here and now. Be joyful and happy in the present moment, because that's the only so-called time frame that I can actually live my life. Be careful of what psychologists call conditional happiness, where you tie your happiness to some future condition happening. Whether you are waiting to earn more money, waiting to retire, waiting to get married, this waiting to live mindset is one we can easily fall into. And it not only robs us of our joy in life, it makes us less efficient. Think about it. Were you able to put your best foot forward when you were unhappy? No. So therefore, instead of attaching your happiness to some future condition, focus on being happy now by addressing the internal conflicts that you have. We all have those, and see your future goal as something extra, but not something that you need for your happiness. Another way to put this is, instead of getting lost in the pursuit of happiness, focus on being happy now as you are pursuing your goals. Don't forget to enjoy the process and actually live your life. Next, save more and spend more as you earn more. Save and spend more as you earn more. Oftentimes, when people earn more money, let's say they get a raise, they also increase their lifestyle to match this increase of earning. Therefore, they don't see any improvement in their financial situation. I always tell my clients to break any increase of income into 3 parts. The first part is a third of your increase of income should go towards paying down more debt, whether it's credit card debt or more principal on your mortgage. A third should go towards saving more money, whether it's in your retirement account or in your personal savings. And then a third of that increase should go to enjoying your life, go on a vacation, improve your lifestyle, buy something nice. And this way you get to incorporate an increase in income in a balanced way. You see the improvements in your financial situation, and you get to enjoy and improve your lifestyle. Next, create autopilot habits. Saving money is often difficult when we have to think about it. So stop thinking about it. Set up auto habits that save money for you automatically. Use the philosophy of pay yourself first. Paying yourself first means you pay yourself, you put money away for yourself before you pay anyone else, whether it's a company or friends. The idea is, if you pay everyone else first, you will never have money left over for yourself. We see this. You see it probably in your life. But if you put money away for yourself first, you will always make sure that you are good, and then you pay everyone else. There are different ways that you can do this. You can have a percentage of your salary go directly into your retirement accounts, right? You can also have a percentage of your salary go to a separate savings account. Ideally, one that you don't have too much of an easy access to. You can also transfer between checking and savings automatically every month or every paycheck. The idea is for you to take the saving decision out of your mind, so you don't have to think about it. Next, monitor your behavior and progress. Too often, people only focus on their finances when there's an urgency. In fact, there's a saying that says that if you don't take care of what's important becomes urgent. We see that too often with finances. Make your finances a conscious part of your life. Again, set goals, have spreadsheets, Journal. Just have routines that incorporate your financial life into your conscious life. Next and last, set helpful barriers to seek ways to resist temptations. But this goes back to knowing yourself, the old school wisdom, know thyself. What bad money habits do you have that you need to set barriers for yourself? For me, it was Amazon Prime. I'm an introvert. The whole idea of buying something online and receiving it in 2 days or less sounded amazing to me. I was clicking buy so much that my right index finger started hurting. So was my wallet and my bank account. I was overspending online. So I came up with a barrier for myself. Instead of clicking buy, I click add to cart. Then I wait a whole week. If I still wanted that product, then I buy it, no problem. But oftentimes I found that just waiting a week stopped me from overspending because I usually lose the desire to buy the thing that I really wanted a week prior. It's almost like eating. Do you know how when you stop eating halfway, you lose a desire to keep eating? But if you don't stop eating, you may overeat. I find that it's the same with spending. If I stop myself halfway, then I don't overspend. That worked for me. For you, it may be something different. Maybe you swipe your credit card too much when you go out. Well, carry less credit cards and more cash, because the visual of seeing money leave your hand is painful. Seeing your hard-earned money leave your hand hurts your feelings. That may curve you from overspending. But again, it goes back to knowing thyself. Next slide, please.
So I'm going to jump in really quick, if you don't mind. Just a friendly reminder on the time. We have a little bit more than 15 minutes left, and I know we've got a lot to cover. But I'll just jump in with a quick comment. I'd love that you had here on the slide, pay yourself first, because it's something I do a lot. And I think of another way to express it is that you always spend what you have. So if I pay myself first, I'm always going to spend whatever's left, whether I pay myself first or last. So make sure you're your own best friend and take care of yourself before everything else gets paid out, because that's always going to hit a zero at the end. So you'd rather have something for yourself at the beginning. And it's just amazing the common thread through all of these things is so much of the social, psychosocial, psycho-emotional part of it that drives these things. And many times we're not even thinking about it consciously; we're just doing it, and it puts us in a spot we don't want to be in oftentimes.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, let's talk about the 4 types of savings that you should focus on. First is what we've spoken about, emergency funding, 3 to 6 months. Put that aside for you and your family. That's for emergency only. It's not for going on a vacation. It's not to lend money to friends. If the only money you have is your emergency fund and someone asks you for money, then you don't have money. That's for an emergency. Next is short-term savings. Some things happen every year, but yet people act shocked when it's happening. For example, Christmas is around the corner. Many people act surprised when it's Christmas. Oh my God, it's Christmas again. And then they go into debt. Why not save money to wipe the year forward? Your mother's birthday is every year. Why are you shocked? Why don't you have money set aside? You go on annual vacations every year. Short-term saving is 1 year or less. Make sure that you have a fund for those things. Next is midterm savings. Think 2 to 5 years. If you want to buy a car, a new house, slowly but surely put money away for your midterm savings. And then you have your long-term savings. That's 10 years or longer. A great example of long-term saving is your retirement. Okay. When it comes to your retirement savings, the maximum amount that you can put into your account is $19,500 if you're below 50, and $26,000 if you're above 50, right? Now, those numbers change from time to time. Keep up to date on what those numbers are and try to maximize it if you can. The idea is to put as much as you can. So that's why I said the 10% rule is just a rule of thumb. The idea is just to save as much as you can. And your retirement, try to maximize it if you can. right? 19,500 if you're below age 50. You want to try to put as much as you can without jeopardizing your current life. You still want to enjoy your life, but again, if you can, maximize it. If you cannot, put as much as you can towards that limit. Another question is, should I save in a Roth or pre-tax manner? The answer to that question is not straightforward because each type of savings have tax benefits, and it's based on your specific tax situation, which one is best for you. A quick example: let's say you earned $50,000 this year, and you put money, $10,000 in a pre-tax 401k. That lowers your taxable income by $10,000. Your taxable income is now $40,000. The idea is that you are in a higher tax bracket while you are working, so it makes sense to shelter as much income as possible from taxes. And then when you retire, you have less income, so you are in a lower tax bracket. It makes sense to start to withdraw then. You save money in taxes that way. That makes sense, right? That's the advantage of the pre-tax. The Roth or after-tax is the opposite, where there is no tax benefit in the year of contribution. So if, in our example, if you earn $50,000, you will get taxed on your whole $50,000, even if you put $10,000 into a Roth 401k. Now, but if two conditions are met, if you are at least 59 and a half years old and at least 5 taxable years have passed since your first contribution into the Roth, then you are allowed to withdraw your money tax-free. Ideally, you want to have a balance of having both types, so you have more flexibility when you retire, okay? But how much you put into each, that's up to your individual tax situation. Next slide, please. Now, step 3 into building your wealth. We won't be able to get through this whole presentation, but I'll get through as much as possible because I really came loaded today with information. Now, saving money is not enough. Okay, saving money is the first step to building Rule. It's not the most important step, but it is a very important step, but it's only the first step. If you save money and just leave it there in your savings, you won't build wealth because of two things. Primarily because of inflation. Inflation has been on the news a lot lately. Inflation is the price of living. Since the 1950s, inflation has gone up by 3% per year on average. Some years it's less, some years it's more. For the recent past, it's been very low, but now it's above 5%, and it's probably gonna go up more. That's a concern. So that means that the same good you used to buy last year is a lot more expensive this year. If you leave your money earning nothing in a savings, it's losing 3% per year compounded. So in 10 years, your money is able to buy more than 30% less of what it used to buy. So $100,000 is worth like $60-something thousand. It's very important for you to invest your money to earn at least 3% per year to keep up with inflation. Now, short-term money should never be invested. Because if the stock market takes a big dip, like it did in 2007 and 8, where it went down 40%, and you invested that money that you needed in the short term, that means that you would have to withdraw your money at 40% less. So if you invested $100,000, you would only be able to withdraw $60,000. So never invest short-term money. Short-term money should be liquid in a savings. Midterm money, on the other hand, should be invested in something. Not too aggressive. That's money you're going to need in like 2 to 5 years. That's midterm, right? But it should be invested in something moderately risky. Long-term money should be invested more aggressively. That's your retirement money because you have a long time. Even if the market goes down, you have time to recover. And you don't want your money to just outpace inflation. You want it to grow above inflation. Now, when it comes to your retirement account, what should you invest in? When I first graduated college, I was just picking up any funds because no one taught me anything. The best funds to invest in your retirement generally is that target funds. There's a date. Generally, the longer the date, the longer away it is, the more aggressive it is. And you should pick a date of when you think you will need the money, not when you retire. Because let's say you retire, you will be retired 20 years from now, but you won't need the money because you have other funds in 30 years. So you would pick a target date that's 30 years away. These funds offer something that's very important called diversification, which is not putting all your eggs in one basket. If you just pick one or two funds, you will maybe taking too much risk. But these funds spread your money across different asset classes. Okay, very important. Diversification is one of the best ways to invest to minimize risk, because with investing, there is risk. Now, this is just a broad overview of investing. We could do a whole presentation on investing, because there are a lot of things to consider before you invest, such as your risk tolerance, your time horizon, how much liquid cash you have. But just to give you enough information for you to look into your retirement accounts and start to make sure that it is invested, because I've seen people leave their money in cash and their retirement account. That's the worst thing you can do. So make sure it's invested and look at those target funds. Next slide, please. The fourth step in this building your net worth is to manage your cash flow. As we mentioned, the best way to build your wealth, well, the number one rule to building your wealth is it's not about how much money you earn, it's about how much you get to keep, right? If you don't manage your cash flow correctly, you won't be able to keep your money. So you have to sit down and track your spending. A budget is another way to describe cash flow management. A cash flow keeps you honest. Because a lot of time people say, I know I earn money, but I don't know where the money goes. A budget helps you identify where your money is going every month. As tedious as it is, it's so helpful to help you free up other money that's being wasted and putting it towards something that's useful, like saving for a house or putting more money in your retirement and so forth. Think of a budget like going on a diet. No, I'm not talking about those bad diets where you starve yourself and then you end up putting on more weight in the long run. I'm talking about diets that actually to slowly lower the calories you intake over time. In fact, I usually tell my clients to use a Japanese philosophy called Kaizen. Kaizen states that small incremental progress done over time leads to exceptional growth and improvement in the long run. For example, let's say you spend $10 a day on coffee during the work week. If you instead cut that in half, that $5 that you're saving every workday leads up to be $100 a month, $1,200 a year, and $36,000 in 30 years. Now, you save $36,000 for your long-term future by making one small cut on one item line in your budget. Imagine if you went throughout your whole budget and made similar small cuts in different item lines. You can end up saving a massive amount of money in the long run, but just by making small cuts. If to help you in your budgeting effort, go online and search budget worksheet and pick a format that's more closely aligned to your spending habits. Number 4, beware of overspending. And that's something we can easily do if we are using credit cards too often. Credit cards make it very convenient for you to spend your money. It's designed that way. It's not, they say it's for you, but it's really for the credit card companies, because they get you trapped in debt. Because when you swipe your card, it feels good. You swipe it, you receive your product. It's almost like magic. It feels good until you receive your bill in the mail and you realize you overspent. You spent more money than you have, and now you are in debt. Instead, as I mentioned, try carrying more cash and less credit cards if you have a spending issue when you go out. Okay? Try carrying cash. Number 6, outline your budgeting goals. The whole idea of sitting down to create a budget sounds very tedious. It sounds not fun, right? Well, that's because it is tedious and it's not fun. But when you attach goals to it, it becomes more interesting. If you attach, okay, I'm going to save, I'm going to budget to save for a down payment for a home, it becomes a lot more interesting. If you are trying to get out of debt and seeing where you can save money and you're spending so you can put down towards more, put money down towards your credit card payments, budgeting becomes a little fun, right? If you don't want to sit down to track your spending, you can also just go online or go on your app store and download budgeting apps that link to your bank accounts and credit card and track your spending for you. That's another option that you have. Okay, we have limited time left, so let's see what we have on the next slide. Okay, I couldn't end this without briefly talking about credit. Credit and debt is another major issue in this country. It's not just a savings problem. We also have a debt problem. People are buried in credit card debt. I was one of them, as I mentioned. When it comes to your credit, you are always being evaluated. And the tools that lenders use to evaluate you are your credit reports, which are summaries of your experience with credit. Based on that experience, you have credit scores. Okay. The most important credit score is known as your FICO score. This score is very important because it impacts so many different areas of your life. For example, it impacts how much you pay for loans in terms of the interest rates you are charged. It impacts how much you pay for insurance premiums. It may even impact your ability to rent an apartment. I used to work at a bank, and it was mind-boggling to see people with hundreds of thousands of dollars in their savings account, but yet could not rent an apartment because they had no credit or bad credit. It may even impact your ability to for employment. Now, that's not legal in New York, but there's some states that allow employers to check your credit before they offer you employment. Because your credit score is so important, let's go to the last slide we will discuss today because of time. The breakdown of your credit score. The biggest part of your credit score is your payment history. That accounts for 35% of your credit score. I don't know, this graph is off. It's 35%. Forget the other numbers. Your payment history is 35% of your credit score, the biggest chunk. If you're serious about building your score, make sure that you pay your bills on time. And if you're going to be late for whatever reason, ensure that you are not more than 30 days late, because that's when they report you to the credit bureaus. Every 30 days, 30, 60, 90, 120, each one of those latenesses have a drastic impact on your credit score. Next is amount owed, also known as debt to credit ratio. Okay, that's 30%. That's the second biggest chunk of your credit score. You want to limit how much debt you have on any one credit card. Keep it below 30%. That's the rule of thumb. That applies to individual credit cards as well as all your credit cards combined. If you have 4 credit cards with a credit limit of $10,000, limit your balance on all 4 of them to $3,000 combined, or 30%. Next is the length of credit. How long have you had credit? Make sure that you keep old credit cards open, because closing them have a drastic impact on the length of time you've had credit. Even if you don't use them any longer, put them in a drawer, but don't call the credit card companies to close them. In fact, you want to use them at least like once a year or so to keep them open. Next is new credit. Every time you apply for new credit, companies do something that's called a hard credit check or hard credit inquiry. Each one of those checks can drop your credit score by up to 5 points. Next is types of credit used. Lenders love to see that you are able to manage different types of credit. Okay, so it's great to have different history of handling different credit, such as a car loan, a credit card loan, a home loan. It looks good on your credit score. I can go longer, but Steve, where are we standing with time?
We're right about at 1, and just have a comment and then a question. So we actually we have a viewer, and I think this particular alum has been with us before. Someone watching today from Togo, which is very exciting. So shows the power globally of the Binghamton Alumni Network to have viewers all over the place. We think of Binghamton being in New York or New York City or an upstate kind of thing, and we're everywhere. So it's great
It's
to
beautiful.
have you with us from there. Let's see, I'm checking the comments here. Let's see. Then we have a question that came from Christian. Where can I find good resources for investing? I'm sure there are tons, but if you can give us maybe 2 or 3 in particular that are good sources for information. I think what Christian is looking for are places to get unbiased opinions, to get information to really help to sort out through all the possible things that you could invest in to distill it down to what you really want.
Hmm. I'm not allowed to um, give any recommendations in terms of different companies, but when you sign up for these different brokerage accounts, they usually have information sections about different investing. People just overlook the educational portion of it. So if you when you sign up for an investing program, whether it's with Merrill Edge or Merrill Lynch, Robinhood, there are sections where they give you information, basic information about investing. Also, I would if you can afford it, definitely speak to certified financial planner. I would avoid any financial advisor. I shouldn't say any, but most that are not certified financial planners because I've been in this field for too long not to know that there are very unhealthy financial advisors that all they care about is money and fees. So be very careful with who you go for advice. But yeah, I would talk to a professional also.
Thank you. And one thing I can mention, and maybe have a little bit more freedom to say this because I'm not in the industry, but I look at sources for news that are tied in particular to major news networks. And you'll find those sites easily doing just a quick Google search. And I find that they're good places for, not only seeing what stocks are doing, but they have some recommendations on there that I don't know that I necessarily would act based on those, but you get enough information and hopefully it gives you enough to make a decision. And there's certainly a lot of unbiased advice out there. And yes, as Rigetti said, anybody that um, is out there trying to take a fee before they've done anything, they've got their money already. So they don't really necessarily care about how your investments do. They've made their money. So be very wary of that. Our friend in Togo has a question. So before we wrap up, I definitely want to get to this. The question is, while in the United States, I have a 401k account with my employer. When I graduated and left the States in 2019, and everything stopped. I currently live in Togo. What advice do you have for me?
Well, in terms of that account, just ensure that it's invested. Again, that's key. You don't want to leave it in cash, but nothing happens to it if it's there and it's invested. Um, I would just ensure that you have online login so you could keep an eye on it. But if you don't need it, you could just leave it the way it is until you need it. But just ensure that again it's not sitting in cash. That's the worst thing you can do, especially when you're living far away. You can just forget it and have it sitting in cash for years. But yeah, you can leave it, and then when you decide, I don't know about the tax consequences if you decide to take money out because there will be taxes, and and since you're not a U.S. Resident anymore, I don't know how that would work to be honest. But you always have access to you always have the option to just leave it or take money as needed. But I would not recommend that you take the whole thing at once because that would be a large tax bill, depending on the size of your account.
We've come to the end of our time for today. It went fast. I really
Yeah,
said when we were getting ready to put the program together, it's one of the fastest hours you'll ever have. And for me, it certainly was, and maybe for you as well. But Rigetti, thank you very much for spending the time. I know you're very passionate about wanting to help people to get started and to do it properly. And so I didn't have to do a lot of convincing when I asked you if you would do the program for us. You were very agreeable to doing it. So thank you. And I appreciate it. I know there are people watching this live and that will watch watch it afterwards on the recording, that will certainly appreciate the advice as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I hope this will help a few people improve their financial situation.
And that concludes today's webinar. We will be back tomorrow and Thursday in the noon Eastern lunch hour. Tomorrow's topic is fortifying your financial future. This is for people in the mid-career set. And then Life's Retirement Derailers is on Thursday, and that is for those who are getting ready to make the transition into retirement within the next couple of years. So if you're watching today, those programs may not necessarily be for you because this was more for your age set. But if you know people in the Binghamton alumni land, send them our way. So we've closed registrations for the 2 webinars this week, but you can find us on the Alumni Association Facebook page. Facebook.com/Binghamton alum is where these programs will be televised live, just as we are doing right now. Actually not binghamton.edu. Our website is binghamton.edu/alumni. Facebook.com/Binghamton alum is where the programs will be. But go to the alumni website, find out how you can volunteer with us. We definitely welcome that. And as I said before, what programs do we put together and offer you? You get to help decide. And that's the beauty of the Alumni Association and what we offer. So from all of us here on campus, have a great rest of the day. And we'll be back live tomorrow at noon Eastern.